Hello, welcome back. This week's video, as you can probably see, is a little bit different than my other videos. It's not climbing, it's not training, it's just me talking, and I'm not even in a van. It's like, what's happening? I'm back home, I'm in SoCal. And I actually wanted to take this time where I'm not really climbing, to make videos of like what I've learned in climbing. So the first one, which I thought would be really fun, is 5 tips that I would tell younger me when I started climbing. I was actually pretty hesitant to make this video because as I was internet sleuthing, I found a lot of videos with a similar vibe, like what I wish I would have known when I started climbing, top tips for beginner climbers, top mistakes beginner climbers make, you know, things along those lines. But I was actually surprised to see that a lot of the tips didn't overlap at all with the tips I would have told myself if I could go back in time. I came to the conclusion that I started climbing 7 years ago, and it paralleled that time in life where you're trying to figure out like who you are, what you want to be, how you want to live. I was 16 years old, so I feel like that's that sweet spot where you're kind of like done with puberty, kind of. And it's one of those pivotal moments where you really are deciding like who you are, or at least for me, maybe I was a late bloomer. And so for that reason, I feel like a lot of the things I would tell past me are super personalized, more on like the meta level, like the emotional impacts, and just, well, personally, I think that these tips would have helped, they helped me progress as a climber about the same, if not more, than your normal tips of like getting good fitting shoes or hopping on harder grades and not caring about grades, you know, those kinds of ideas. So let's get right into it. Yeah, if you knew me when I first started climbing, like guarantee, like I'll give you $1 if you didn't hear me say this. Like I said something along the lines of like, oh, I don't train, or no, like I only climb. I didn't touch a hangboard, I didn't touch a campus board. It was like I was embarrassed almost to touch them, because if I did, that would admit that I'd be wanting to try hard, and if I was trying like an easy, one of what I would consider at the time an easy problem, and I fell, I'd be like embarrassed that I trained, because it's like, wow, she tries hard and she can't even climb hard. If you want to revolve your life around climbing, that is fine. You don't need to be any level of a climber. Like you don't need to be extremely strong. It does not matter. This is what I would tell myself, like, you're not an imposter. On that same topic, it took me a little while to figure out why people always said things like, oh, you're always here, it's like you live here at the climbing gym, or oh, why, like, do you ever leave? Do you have a life? Like, do you do anything outside of climbing? Like all of these comments, and I really internalized them at first, but then I realized that it's not something you can take personally, because, okay, bear with me as I get real Pinterest here, as I saw once on a motivational quote board. What someone else says about your character is always more of a reflection of where they are mentally at that time. Little Anna, remember to follow your happiness and to do what makes you feel good. And if that means being at the gym all of the time, like, that is perfectly okay. It is not your burden to explain that to anyone or to justify yourself for being there. Like, you just do you. Yeah, I had a ton of plateaus because I wasn't really willing to push my training to the next level, because I was super fearful of becoming really muscular, really masculine, really unattractive, especially at a time where I was just starting to get attention from other people. Like, you know, like at that time, for me, I went on my first date when I was 16. I wasn't prepared for myself to look a certain way that wasn't like what we saw on television. So this compounded with the fact that I was surrounded by a lot of men who were making comments like, oh, like muscular women are so unattractive, or oh, Anna, like it's so cool how you are thin but you still climb hard, like that's cool. And like really I mean, really frustratingly sexist comments that made me actually really terrified to gain any bit of weight, to look anything other than this like thin princess, you know? So it actually took me a while to unpack all of these detrimental comments. And it wasn't until really like these last, I'd probably say 2 years at this point, these last 2 years where I was able to kind of overcome that bullshit, you know? and realize that my body is capable, it's sexy, it's strong, and like I love it. That's enough. You know, someone else is probably like someone out there probably like it too. And that doesn't matter, but it's like there are so many people out there that like so many different body types. Like, you do what makes you feel good, you feel happy, the rest will follow. It's gonna be fun. And the thing is, there's no loophole to being a strong climber. So if you want to excel in climbing in any sport, like, you're pushing your body to a limit, and at some point it's physically gonna have to adapt. Like, there's nothing really you can do about that. Like, that's just inevitable. In light of society's unrealistic expectation that women remain as childlike and fragile as possible while entering womanhood, let's dive into some facts. On the WSF Women's Sport Foundation's website, I found a really important article on why young girls drop out of sports and also why it's important to keep them involved. Sports are important for a plethora of reasons, ranging from physical health to building confidence, leadership, and teamwork skills. The main reason girls do not continue playing sports, behind lack of access and money for female sports facilities and programs, are that many girls experience bullying, social isolation, unwanted physical changes, and they are lacking in positive role models. So little Anna, don't let anyone else's opinions of your body or how you should take up space in this world dictate how you live your life. In a few years, bear with it, you're gonna meet some bad crusher ladies, and it's gonna be so different. It is part of it, and it can give you really beautiful insight too into your other worlds. And by that I mean the planets that don't revolve around climbing, training, sending, or what have you. The ones that are about making beautiful friendships, about flowing creativity, self-reflection, learning, reading, you know, just other things. When pushing limits of any sport, it's kind of a given that you're gonna get injured, and especially when we're doing such an extreme sport like climbing. Another thing is that climbers, like in my opinion and my experience, are so beautifully passionate, but that means that it's almost soul crushing when we get an injury and can't climb, or when there's a pandemic and we can't climb. I've noticed that a lot of us put a huge chunk of our self-worth into climbing, and we kind of forget the reason why we filled that bucket so high in the first place. For me, if you really boil it down, it's not necessarily about the climbing, but it's about the friendships I've made through climbing. It's about like experiencing that rush when you complete something that was really difficult that you set your mind to. Feeling comfortable when you're confident and in your zone. You know, it's like climbing's my thing, I've got this. It's about being wanderlust, and it's about this like really unique tie to nature that we all have. And you know, those things, they don't go away when you like, you get injured and it's all gone. You know, like they stay with you. They stay with you when you're half as strong. They stay with you when you're riding a bike, when you're trying to paint something, or whatever it is you do. Like, those things are part of you. So little Anna, you're gonna get hurt a few times, because especially in the first few years of climbing, like, you are really brave and ambitious, and you're gonna fall pretty badly. It's gonna hurt too. But the thing is, like, you're going to be so much stronger emotionally and physically after the injury. Like, you just will be. And also, you're gonna be fine. Like, you're gonna find other hobbies. It's gonna be great. You'll take up woodworking at some point. That's when you break your foot. Yeah, it'll be good. You'll like it. It's gonna be fun, I promise. In a sport where failure happens so much more than success, I feel like there's two options, right? Like, one, you can be defeated by the failure and you probably will eventually hate climbing and quit climbing, right? It's just not your thing. And the other one is to redefine what success and failure mean to you within the sport. And I know I have so much to learn about this still. Like, I have so much to learn about everything. I totally get that. Like, I'm just talking to my 16-year-old self, right? But I think that at least this attitude has really traversed into other facets of my life, where I'm like, oh, like, maybe on this test, it's not really about getting like a perfect score, but it's about learning the material. Who would have thought, you know? So I really feel like it's a good way to think about things. You have to redefine these words in order to get joy out of what you're doing. So applying this into climbing, when I started climbing, I was so afraid of failure. Partially because I did feel like I had to prove myself, because I was in the situation where I was like, well, I'm like the only woman who's climbing like a certain level, whatever. Like I was just, I felt like I had a chip on my shoulder, you know? And so in order to like stay feeling confident, I would avoid all of the inverted climbs, all of the roof climbs, pinches, slopers, like, you know, anything that's not slab vertical crimps. And the thing is, I got really good really fast. Like, that's just what happens. Like, I focused in on one thing and I excelled in it. Flash forward a few years and that's literally all I can do. So I had to make that like really hard choice to, you know, be a little humbled and go back and start about 6 grades weaker in roof climbing, pinches. Like, I'm still working on my anti-styles, but in the process of kind of like tearing myself down and realizing like I have nothing to prove. Like, I'm just here to enjoy the sport. Like, I've actually gotten a lot of value out of the struggle. It's like, you'll still see me be really frustrated. I might even cry, but like what I get from it, I truly enjoy. So little Anna, don't be intimidated by the climbs or by the men or by the holds. You know, just go out there, have fun, learn to enjoy the struggle, you know, to feel all the emotions, and just don't take yourself so seriously. Like, that's not a sustainable way to do this sport. Just have fun. Yeah, you read that right. Always. Like, no, like, I don't care if she's giving you that face, like, who is she? I don't care if she's trying to gauge if you're stronger than her or if she's still the strongest girl in the gym. I don't care if other guys are comparing your style to hers, even though they're like opposite styles, just because you're the 2 strong girls. I don't care if a guy comes up to you and is like, she climbed the blue climb, like, are you gonna climb it? Oh, she flashed this. Like, I don't care. We were all raised in a really sexist society. It's true. Like, we were taught to compete with other women, and that's complete bull, because we are stronger together. And that applies to any of the labels that make you feel marginalized in the climbing community, right? Like, that applies to your gender, your sexuality, your ethnic background, your race. It applies to everything. Like, you are stronger together. And reaching out to people in my communities has been one of the most fulfilling parts of my climbing experience personally. And obviously, like, the reason I'm telling 16-year-old me this is because it wasn't always that way. Like, I was kind of a hormonal teenager who would be like, I'm the strong girl, you know? And it's weird, it's this jealous, like, toxic atmosphere, and it's just like, it was not cool, you know? So little Anna, like, just take a breath. Whatever you think you have to prove, you don't. And be the woman who reaches out to other women first, because trust me, it's a game changer. And that's it. Those are my 5 tips for beginner 16-year-old Anna. And I really look forward to future Anna telling me what tips I should follow, because I know that there's always more to learn and figure out in this world. Yeah, so let me know what you would tell beginner you if you had a time machine and could go back in time. And let me know also if any of these tips resonated with you specifically. I'd be like super curious to know, because I feel like these topics aren't really addressed so much in the climbing community, but they're also really important. And for me, they were pretty formative in my climbing experience. So yeah, I hope to start a conversation in the comments below. And that's it. So I'll see you next week. Bye.